Go for it.
Hello, all of you wonderful friends out there, and welcome back to the stream. I've got a limited amount of time tonight, so I decided I'm gonna go ahead and work on the Marcep race, which I suppose I probably should have switched over to the professor for writing, since he is a Marcep, and well, I did not think about that until right now, so here we go. But, welcome in, everybody. I am currently joined by my good friends here. You should definitely go check out Rygon over at the channel Rygon Plays. He is also currently streaming. And then there's also Arzadeyu, who streams sometimes.
I ended recently, so I'm not streaming right now.
Ah. I just got World Anvil last night. Got some stuff set up with it. And now I want to, I was planning to do some of these streams later. Why is there video? Create an area of outstanding natural beauty in your world.
But don't
Maybe.
mind me, just gonna relax for a second.
Would you like me to poke you at some point?
Maybe if I'm not up in like an hour. I shouldn't take that long, but if I end up not, then sure.
I won't be here in an hour. Well, actually, I will be in an hour. But okay. So Syria, World Anvil does have a cost to it. They've got a free version that you can use, but there is a cost to it, and it's kind of high in my opinion for what it does. But yeah, it does cost money if you want access to all of the features, but for just putting together a world, it doesn't really require it.
It does have a lot of very useful features in it, though, like a ton. The cost
Honestly,
might be high, but you are getting quality.
it is good quality from what I've seen. And also, like, this little writing prompt here, I never would have thought of figuring out as it says, an area of outstanding natural beauty. I never would have thought of designing one, and yet now my brain's already kind of going, the gears are turning, and I kind of want to do that, and yet at the same time I kind of want to get the basics down first. Sirio, like I said, there is a free version, and the free version's got a lot of stuff. I mostly picked up the subscription because I see a lot of use for this with the community. Because I can add others on here that can also make their own worlds and stuff. And, well, we could have a world for the poker roll. We could have a world for the Kerr's Pokemon game, for Taldarius's game. And so we can collect all of the lore and details and stuff into one place that you guys as viewers can go look at. But if you just want to make a world, I think it's more than good enough for you. Also, I want night mode. And actually, I'm gonna come... I should start a different way. Introduction. Or is this what I
Well,
want?
it's late for me, and I want to start winding down to go to sleep.
Oh, I
Alright, catch you
already.
later, RC.
Farewell. I'll
Nuzzles.
see you all another day. Nuzzle. Y'all cute. And boopable and pettable and huggable.
All right. By the way, if we lose stream raiders, I won't be running any more tonight, but I figured we'll run until either I have to end or we lose. So, place your troops. Oh, they loaded up my tweets, my Twitter. Why would they do this? Oh, and apparently they also have the Twitch channel on here. Hello there, Fluffy Shadow. I kind of want to explore this site, but I'm kind of scared by some of these. We'll come back to that. All right. So what is this editing? I'm guessing it's going to be like some kind of... Well, I guess I can just do this. Test, test, test. Where's the save? Oh, I guess it just auto saves? Okay. Ah, that is where that goes. Okay. Yeah, guys, there won't be a huge amount of talking, but if you guys have questions or anything about the Marceps, by all means, ask away. Let's do the Stream Raiders. I kind of got inspired to finally sit down and do this by Rykon, so here we are. For better or for worse. Probably worse. Time frame. I know Rygon and I were talking about the Marceps, about there being a crossover with Refuge. Though I don't think that they would, you know, by default be... Like, there might be some Marceps on Refuge, but not necessarily, you know, the world itself inside Refuge.
At most, there might be like the section of your world, but that's about it. Not the whole world.
Well, considering the world's got constantly changing geography and plates that are shifting around constantly, that is very possible.
You know, all it would take is just for some small little forgotten piece of land to be, you know, jostled just right, and it would end up falling through the layers into Refuge.
I'm sorry, but the thing that came to mind just now was the back rooms. Except instead of just a single person, it's an entire planet. Well, not a whole planet, but, you know, a section of the planet. Just no clips out of reality. Though I am curious how it might work with, because they have a bit of a psionic capability. Or not exactly capability, more just like a connection between each other through the crystals.
Okay.
Basically, like, if you have a shard of somebody's crystals that they willingly gave you, you could communicate with them through that shard.
Well, the communication wouldn't occur, but you would probably feel still a faint connection. So, like, for example, if your, I guess, mother or whoever it is you got the crystal from, if they weren't on the piece of land that went into Refuge, you might still feel that connection, but you won't be able to communicate. And the reason is just due to the indecipherable nature of Refuge. It's literally within a tangle of a tangle of a tangle ad infinitum. Nothing's powerful enough to get through all that. Even gods have a hard time finding refuge. And in fact, some would even consider it an impossible task.
Fair enough. Are people able to come back from there?
There have been attempts.
I'm guessing they ended in failure.
The large majority of them, yeah. There's always that chance that some have succeeded, but again, just due to the very nature of refuge, it would be incredibly difficult, if not impossible.
Okay.
You can kind of think of it as like a baby trying to get out from underneath a thick blanket. Technically, it could, but it probably wouldn't.
All right.
But yeah, I mean, when it comes to refuge, though, one thing I would ask you to keep in mind is um, there will be essentially two different versions of refuge that I work with. One of them is going to be a more commercialized aspect. So, like, it's actually going to have books written for the regions, and there's going to be official artwork, stuff like that. And then there's going to be a looser version where more like a fan-made, non-commercialized stuff can be placed. So I just ask you to keep that in mind. That if you do choose to have like a small piece of your world end up in refuge, that you clearly differentiate between the two, so that way the material doesn't actually get getting mixed up. Because I'd hate to like say accidentally have any aspect of your world end up in a commercial product when you don't want it to, for example.
I mean, I would have no qualms with that.
Okay.
But
If you're fine with it, then yeah, I can start writing something up for them right away.
well, that's up to you. It's just,
Well, I don't
I'm
mind.
just
A big here. This is going to require me to sit down.
if you need more rest though, we
No,
can
I
always
just I
discuss it
don't want to be
another time.
speaking. No, I just don't want to be speaking to you from across the room. Oh God, it's cold. Let me at least go put on a coat and we can continue the conversation.
All right.
Okay. I got a coat on.
All right.
All right, so refuge itself is meant to be an inspiration well. In other words, or in other words, and I guess in other worlds, it is meant to be a foundation that other people can then add ideas onto over time. So, like other custom species, other custom regions and worlds, and over time, it's just meant to be kind of built up and up and up. With, of course, a central foundation that helps to filter some of the more inappropriate aspects out. And by inappropriate, I mean like, oh, I'm going to put fucking Superman in fucking refuge. No, that's not going to fly.
Okay.
Yeah. But something like, say, your world would be a perfectly viable aspect because one, your species is not overpowered. Like every species that goes into refuge has to have very definable strengths and weaknesses. Um, even if it's just something as simple as, well, eventually they do die. They pass on. And of course, they have to obey the rules of refuge as well.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
So what I was saying is, I can definitely add a region from your world into Refuge, and allow the Marceps to be a part of that. But then in doing so, I would probably need at least maybe in some form of writing from you that is perfectly acceptable for me to work on, and to, of course, with your input to craft them as part of the overall narrative.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The main thing that I would have to ask is, or the main thing that we would need to decide is whether they, like when they would have fallen in.
Good
Because,
question.
like I said, there are many different distinct, physiologically distinct varieties of Marceps, species, races, whatever you want to call it, based on where they kind of developed in their history, or in the more ancient times. And so
Well,
it could be that instead of just having, you know, like if it were more quote unquote modern times, then it would be, it might have been a city or town or something that was on the region that fell in. Whereas, and thus you'd have the whole potential, all of the different varieties of them. Whereas if it were older and like more closer to ancient times, it could be a matter of they would have developed their own unique subspecies that was more adapted to Refuge itself.
Well, honestly, the technical answer is all of the above. And the reason for that is twofold. One, within the infinite worlds out there, the infinite universes, you're going to get all the infinite different flavors of Marcep. So, considering that bits and pieces from all of those infinities fall into Refuge, then technically one could say that all of the infinite variations of the Marcep do as well. As for the main region that you were discussing, however, I would definitely say that there would be a majority species present within Refuge, with perhaps little bits and pieces from the other different varieties of Marcep kind of popping in every so often. Because it's not just regions that can pop in; it can also be, like you said, small shards, with which may encompass towns. It could just be individuals, or it could just be objects.
I'm kind of brewing an idea in my head right now.
Okay.
I think the major one would probably be, so their equivalent of the medieval period is generally when they started to develop into their own distinct versions. And I'm kind of thinking that one of the plates got separated, with them constantly shifting around, perhaps a small plate got stranded in the middle, away from everything else, and at some point, it just fell out. And thus, that is the only major, ocean on the planet, is where that that one plate used to be.
Very well could
And
be.
thus, they could, because then, they would have been disconnected from the rest of their people. With the, ocean travel, especially the variety, the space that I'm thinking of for this to have happened is something that's exceedingly hard for them to pull off. So it would have had to have been long before they developed any form of flight. You know, airplane, whatever.
Yeah.
So, you know, being disconnected from them, from the rest of their people, that kind of fits the forgotten idea that you were describing. I could be not understanding the full picture here. That's just based on what you're saying, or what you've said so far.
Of course, and well, that picture is being actively developed on. There's no like firm and hard truths completely.
Yeah.
But that said, you know, I'm one of the reasons why I'm crafting these small rule aspects is specifically so that there is an active struggle when people come into refuge. Like essentially the reason why I put in like the whole forgotten rule, for example, is like, you know, small inconsequential places, those are the ones that tend to fall into refuge, is because, well, other more well-known places are more anchored in their universes. You know, you're not going to ever see Superman or some other similarly powerful being or whatnot fall into refuge simply just due to the fact that they're known. Their universe is not just going to forget them.
You know, it could be some of the cave ones, the cave Marceps. Which, funny enough, because that was something that I've been planning to develop for a while, is so the cave Marceps are ones that went underground or got trapped underground. They are probably the most diverse physiologically of all of the various types. Because they lump them all together, but they are all over the planet. You know, they fell into a ravine when it opened and then got trapped down there when it closed. Those kinds of things. Kind of like, yeah, kind of similar to dwarves, except this is a society that doesn't really have mining. At least not the way that we know it, Sirio. So, you know, somebody getting trapped down there, they don't have a way to really get them back out. Depending on how deep they get trapped. And, well, there are some parts of the world that, you know, never knew that those cave Marceps even existed. You know, there's just a town one day that got swallowed up by a ravine. The people were able to at least get into the caves down there, and when the ravine closed again, well, they were still trapped down there, and people just assumed they were dead.
That's not a bad idea.
Which, kind of funny to me, is that one of the things that I was thinking of for those particular Marceps is that some of them would develop 4 ears. Which is a funny coincidence with the Harith.
Well, we probably would have to at least make sure other aspects are very physiologically different, because they're my babies.
I know. Their ears are... I haven't fully mapped out how their ears would work, but I do know that they would be kind of positioned in a way to give them 360 hearing, rather than, you know, a lot of them are more off to the side of the head or top and such, and meant to get from not so much behind and such. They would have developed an echolocation sort of ability over time. Their eyes would not be very well... some of them are probably just not born with eyes, period.
That's fair. Well, just take into heavy consideration what you want your majority version of the Marceps to be, because that will be the one people will probably draw the most inspiration from.
I think I'm liking the idea of kind of a Lost Atlantis idea more. But I could definitely see the kind of a half and half of the island people as well as the cave. Because a lot of those cave ones would they would be prime candidates for just disappearing. No, Sirio, not like that. I'm not going to make them grotesque or too weird, but they are going to be a bit unique. The main thing I was thinking of is basically one set of ears that points forward and the other one that's smaller but points back. Or pulls in sound from behind. And their fur colors are very often a black or pale white. Very, you know, they don't have much more than... They don't have much in the way of color.
Oh, damn, I blanked out there for a second. What do you mean by color? Like fur color?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So they'd probably end up being fairly dull then.
Like, basically some shade of gray rather than any other thing.
Okay, that's fine. But yeah, this is one of those things that this is my more stringent aspects when it comes to the species allowed to be introduced in the refuge, and that is, why does such and such exist? There has to be a why. There's nothing that's going to be allowed in for just shits and giggles, or because it makes it look cool or anything like that. So, like, for example, why are they gray?
Well, that is simply being underground.
Yeah, so there's no need for them to be very colorful.
Exactly. They can't see it anyways, and so eventually the pigments and such just kind of faded out over generations and disappeared altogether.
Yep, that's perfectly fair. Do I have a disassociation time frame? I don't know about disassociation, but I have ADHD and I drift off in conversation sometimes. Not on purpose, mind you. It's just, I don't know, just people start speaking and then I just kind of go, whoo. I don't do it to be rude.
Yeah, definitely something I suffer from sometimes.
Yep.
But you say my name and I'm gonna perk up and hear it no matter where. Got me into so much trouble as a kid. How dare you eavesdrop on my conversation? You said my name! Or something that sounded like my name. I wasn't listening to your conversation. I got no idea what you were talking about. I thought you were talking to me.
Oh, for me, I mean, it's hard for me not to pay attention to such things because it's what captures my attention. It's that little nagging, bit of shiny over in the corner of my ears.
Exactly. Though I will say lately, I've noticed me doing the same thing with egg.
With egg?
Yeah. Jim will be talking to somebody behind me, and I just hear egg, and I'm like, huh? What? And I have to bite my tongue because I know he would not be happy if he thought I was overhearing, but... or eavesdropping. But it's not me eavesdropping, it's just... Marten want egg. I know, right, Sirio? If you don't want to be eavesdropped, don't talk in earshot. That was my biggest gripe there, is like, you're yelling at me for eavesdropping and yet you're talking in the same room with me. I don't think you have a reason, I don't think you've got a reason to be mad for eavesdropping. But the rest of the time I can just, tune out whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'm gonna put this here.
That people occasionally suffer from dissociation while they're neurodivergent. It varies. I'm not going to make a blanket statement because that's not something that should be made a blanket statement. But I'm sure some people do. And it might vary depending on what their issues are.
Relevant words like egg?
Yeah, if you have absolutely any questions at all about the integration process, just let me know. About the only thing I can suggest is the more details, the better. There may need to be a couple of changes here or there, depending on how they fit into the rules of refuge. Like, for example, the crystal communication thing. But otherwise, like, I can't imagine any whatever is there wouldn't be viable. Just know that
Well,
refuge is a big place, and nobody, like literally nobody, is the big fish in a small pond.
oh yeah, they're not interested in that, in being that.
Yeah. Well, what I
And
mean is, and I'm one thing I'm kind of referring to is, like, for example, somebody takes one of their crystals, right, or does something illegal or whatever, and you stated like, oh, the whole Mars.
Raga? Oh no, I think his net dropped. Or mine dropped, I don't know.
Community. Hello.
Hi, there you go. I can hear you now.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Perfect. Yeah, what I was saying was,
You're gone again.
I would say Chris.
Okay, I think you're back. Hopefully to stay.
Hello. Hello.
I can hear
Can
you
you hear me
again.
now?
Yeah, I can hear
So
you.
you can hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
I'm just waiting to see if it'll drop out again before I start
Oh, okay.
rambling.
Ugh. Ugh. Bleh. I only have
All
2
right,
minutes
so
left.
oh no. So what I was saying was, for example, about the big fish and small pond thing, the Marceps obviously in their universe are kind of a big deal. I would imagine at the very least they are a deal. In Refuge, that wouldn't necessarily be the case. They would be around, don't get me wrong, but they probably wouldn't be. They wouldn't have the same presence, just the same as anybody else. Like even humans would be considered like a non-significant sort of thing. There probably would be for the I don't know. That's getting off track. Anyway, the thing like with the crystals with the Marceps, somebody steals a crystal, the whole community goes after them. That might not necessarily be as viable in Refuge. Sure, the Marceps could, like if one Marcep sees a crystal, they recognize what it is and be like, hey, that's a Marcep crystal, and I'm going to stop you from doing whatever it is you're going to do with it. That's fine, that's great. But a whole Marcep community going after one individual would essentially be an impossibility.
So,
So if that
as
crystal
far
gets stolen, it'll be pretty much be gone.
as far as that goes, it's not the crystals that they go after. It's specifically the bodies.
Well, that's what I
Um,
mean. Whether it's crystals or bodies, like literally all an individual would have to do is just cross lands, have that land vanish on the Marceps, and the Marceps wouldn't be able to track it down. Again, that's not to say that at some point they wouldn't come across it again. It's just that being able to chase down somebody who's stolen from you is much, much, much harder in Refuge than it is in a more stable universe.
well, for that, I kind of assume that their traditions and such would have developed in a different way than the main, because for the main, my actual world of them, Marketurn,
Mm-hmm.
part of the reason is the quakes. It's a very important thing of moving on is returning them to the planet, returning them to the
Yeah.
ravines. So, with those not being a thing in Refuge, returning the body to the planet probably would not have been something that really developed.
But there's actually something there that you may not know. The regions within Refuge actually still operate very much the same as they did when they were part of their own universes. You can kind of think of each one as its own little pocket dimension, if you will. It still plays by its own rules. So when, for example, you cross over from one land to another, you may see an entirely different sky above you with a different set of suns and a different set of moons. The lands still operate very much like as if they were a part of their own universes. It's just now they're on Refuge as opposed to their own universes. So you still have the earthquakes and the shifting. It would just be what's the word? It would be restricted to the Marceps region as opposed to the entirety of Refuge itself. So at least when it comes
Okay.
to being able to give the dead back to the earth, that would probably still be a practice the Marceps could realistically still pursue, provided they are able to stay in and reach the region.
All right. Yeah, Sirio, definitely. At first, they would try to keep their traditions, but as time would have changed, they would have changed their, or as circumstances change, traditions would change.
Yeah.
Um, it would still probably be very important to them, but at the same time, it's a body. I'm not sure how many would actually steal the body.
Depends. Refuge is a big place. Plenty of
True.
mages about who might find value in such things, or, wayward scientists and whatnot. I mean,
True.
heck, there's probably plenty of nobles who would find such a thing to just be curios to display on some, vault or another.
And it would
But
probably
yeah,
be a very strong compulsion to try and track down the bodies, but
what I would imagine is it's probably like a species wide, kind of like an unwritten rule that if you see this happening, you do something about it. But they
basically,
recognize that it's not something that they can actively just pursue just due to the very nature of refuge.
yeah. In their own universe, I kind of see it functioning similar to like it does here in the real world. Like, major, there's at least respect for the dead in a lot of wars, even here in the real world, where bodies are allowed to be returned to where they came from. It's kind of that. It's something that we've done before. Like, no,
Yeah.
not everybody pays attention to that, but especially with like a terrorist organization, they're not going to care. But major governments will make efforts to at least allow the dead to be returned to their home country.
Perfectly fair.
And so that's the kind of
Yeah.
thing of it with the Marceps in their world, in their universe, is that the governments, the major governments, are very well aware of that and do their best to respect it.
Oh, in your universe?
Yeah.
Yeah. Within refuge, obviously something like that could be attempted, but again, refuge is a big place and it's shifting. So suppose, for example, the Marceps are able to create a diplomatic relationship with a neighboring land. There's no guarantee that neighboring land is then going to be there, the next morning. So it'd probably be
Oh,
one of those things where there's probably plenty of places that would agree that be like, oh, this is kind of important. Sure, we can do what we can, but there's no guarantee that, well, they'd be able to keep those relationships.
oh, I was purely explaining how it works in the universe where they are, not
Yeah,
necessarily how it would work with the refuge side of things. Um,
yeah. Well, thank you for the follow, Mooney Cutie. Pleasure to have you here. Welcome to the Rygonian community, and I hope you enjoy your stay. We're talking about refuge right now, so feel free to, pull up a chair and listen in if you'd like. It's a concept of my own creation, and Zim here is thinking of introducing a species into it. Go and continue.
so Sirio, in the Marcep universe, at the stay at the quote-unquote modern day, which is a sci-fi future setting. Outside of going to visit going to visit a planet of a primitive species or something, generally all species are aware of each other. They are aware that each other exists. They've got they were built originally for Starfinder. And in Starfinder, they've got a central government that kind of oversees the entire galaxy. Kind of like with Star Wars and their Senate and such. And so everybody's aware that that is something that the Marceps, early on in their adventures into space, made sure that others were aware of. Like, literally, they kind of have this rule that, okay, you blew up like, even with pirates, they kind of have this general thing where you blew up our ship. Okay, we're not happy about that. But we're not going to send armies against you as long as you just return our dead. Just leave them somewhere, leave a beacon, something along those lines, or just leave them where they were. We don't care, but it's not necessarily that extreme, but that's the kind of thing that they put out there for everybody to know.
Send more paramedics. Kudos if anyone gets that reference.
I'm afraid I don't.
It's I can't remember the exact movie, but it's like from the Night of the Living Dead series or whatever. The paramedics arrive on scene, the cops, paramedics, whatever, they arrive on scene, and the zombies overwhelm them and kill them. And the guy on the radio is like, "Hey, what's going on? Do you guys need help?" And so then one of the zombies just grabs the radio and just says, "Send more paramedics." And the reason why I'm referencing that is because I could easily see a species who's like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, sure, we'll go ahead and return your bodies. Here, we'll leave them in this convenient place. Definitely not a trap for you guys. Have fun." So that was just me just kind of making a silly.
Fair.
I'm sure the Marceps would be wise enough not to just walk into a trap, but like still, I just find the concept funny.
Yeah. How do they handle abductions and slavery? As far as those go, like, I haven't really thought of those things. Abductions would still follow the same rule as, you know, it would still go through the police force. They would still go and try, you know, it's just the same as an abduction here in real life. Somebody gets murdered, they're still trying to find the body and such. There will be cold cases, but those still get they would get pushed up the ladder until eventually either they find the person, find the body, or then it's a very unhappy thing, but they will just kind of put it as a cold case. But for the Marceps, it's like their life doesn't technically exactly end with death. Murder is more of a loose concept with them. Because their, you know, mobile form is gone, that doesn't mean that the Marcep's life is over, because they still live on through the crystals. As for slavery, Well, kind of the same way a lot of more modern civilizations respond to slavery, and that's it. That is, you know, if the U.S. or if some other country were to take people and try to enslave U.S. citizens, it's probably something that the U.S. is going to respond in force with. That is one thing that we definitely are not okay with here in the U.S. But it also kind of depends on how many, the kind of numbers that we're talking about, as far as what the response is.
Me. But yeah.
You still
do you have any questions? I'd be more than happy to answer them now, and I'll get your region and your species set up on my to-do list.
Really, Wolfstein? Sorry, ADOS moment there. Wolfstein's comment of, we just use minimum wage instead.
I guess I missed the conversation.
In regards to slavery not being liked in the U.S.
Oh yeah. Slavery's technically illegal, but I mean, considering what is it? The federal minimum wage is like $7. Fuck, you might as well be a slave with those prices.
Yeah.
That's how much it costs to like maybe feed you a bowl of gruel in a day.
Cereal, like I said, it's kind of something that depends on the, like, you're talking numbers. No, an army isn't going to get sent off after you for one person. But it is something that is going to be responded with in very aggressively. What was that, Brygon?
I was saying, like, sure, one individual might not raise an army, but like, say, a colony, that might be a different matter.
Exactly. Like,
Plus,
you
there's
still
that whole like intergalactic political thing too that you have to keep in mind. Like, you know, if somebody, pushes strength of arms against you, you kind of have to do strength of arms back in order to keep yourself, not appearing weak. Yeah, obviously, I don't know how your universe works, but I would assume that would be an issue.
Yeah, it would. But it's kind of the same response as any culture would have in those regards, Sirio. Exactly, Sirio. It's equal to kidnapping. However, they have a much more aggressive response to it. Like here in the US, you kidnap somebody, you're probably just going to jail. For Marceps, you kidnap somebody, and when they find you and find the person, they're shooting you.
It's interesting that they would do that.
They kind of developed that over, years of kind of as a scare tactic, basically. If you steal something and okay, I stole this, I'm just gonna get hit with a fine. You're less likely to do it than if you get hit with 20 years of prison. And you're even less likely to do it if you get hit with execution if you're found. Because with their way that they do things, their traditions and such, it's for them they would view that as punishing the people that didn't do anything wrong, the family of that person. I really don't think there would be any form of exile, even of a group of them. They are tightly knit communities.
That's actually something that I think you'd probably have to explore as well, is how do they maintain their tight-knittedness, despite obviously not always living in the same places, same regions, etc. The communication with the crystals, I think, can only get you so far.
Yes.
So
It's still a
how do they
concept that needs to
maintain
be
that?
thought through.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying you have to like come up with an answer right now. I'm just saying like I think that's something that should bear some thought.
Yeah, I very much agree. Also, are we ever going to lose this Stream Raiders Dungeons run? I'm kind of
Hey,
waiting for
pizza.
that to move to end the stream here.
And also, what the heck? I got like 20 viewers going. What the fudge? Y'all, this is just me talking about and gushing over my refuge shit.
People like those sorts of things.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, shall I add your region and your species to my to-do list then?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. But kind of like I mentioned before, though, I will need it in writing from you that I have permission to work on with these concepts. Not because I plan on like overtaking your own creative process, of course not, but just purely for that commercial aspect in the future. It's not that I don't trust you, but say like if you were to pass and a family member were to come down the line and just be like, "Hey, I see you made money off of this. His estate, we want to make money off of it too." That'd be something that I could protect myself with.
Yeah, I can absolutely add that.
Okay, I do appreciate it. I've seen more than one other project where people allowed like fan creations in, and then those just tore the project apart because, well, suddenly the person didn't want to be a part of it anymore.
Oh yeah, I know.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Only 26 items remaining on my to-do list. Yay! And that's of what I know, or that's what I put down. How do you spell Marcep?
Marcep.
Okay, so exactly as it sounds. Okay.
Oh no, there's a silent H in there as well as a Z.
Oh. So, what is it? Harmchep?
No, like I said, they're silent.
Oh, something I gotta ask. You did get the money, right?
Let me double check. I didn't actually do so. I just took your word for
It's
it. And...
I normally wouldn't care, but it is not an insignificant amount. I want to make sure you
Yeah.
got it.
I did get it, yes.
Okay, good. All right, I won't worry about it. Hey, Evolution, thank you for all the good stuff. Giving me such good care. Except for putting me in jail.
Hi, Evolution.
Okay, what would you want to call your region name? And if you can't think of anything, I can think of one for you.
I don't know. I'm scared of you thinking of something.
I come up with good names, thank you very much.
Sometimes, yes.
Sometimes. What are some of the not sometimes?
Your joke ones that you come up with sometimes?
Oh, excuse me if my joke ones don't exactly hit the nail on the frickin' head. How about Eswadia?
No. They're definitely, for them, a lot of their naming often uses more hard consonants,
Okay.
like Marketurn.
So, Marketurn?
Well, Marketurn's
Alright,
the
let me
name of the
take it.
home world.
How about Achana?
Works for me.
Okay, Achana it is. And what is the most defining aspect of this place? The earthquakes, right?
Ye... Well, my idea that I had there was that it was just one tectonic plate that kind of fell in.
Oh, sure. Well, maybe why not just break it up into, like, say, 4 smaller pieces then?
Yeah, we can go with that.
I mean, even our great tectonic plates are broken up. But okay.
Yeah.
Achana, the shaking land.
I like it.
All right, I've put them into my to-do list.
So another question I do have.
What's up?
If, like, this whole region fell into refuge.
Yeah.
What would it be like for somebody that goes to that place after it's fallen in? Would they then fall in, or is it replaced with the same land, or is there just
That's actually a very good
or...
question, and the simple answer is I don't know. Nobody does. Because obviously everyone's in refuge and nobody's been able to get out.
Fair point.
If you want a conceptual answer, though, something that I've been playing around with, it is that the features of the land remain, but everything important upon it does not, if that makes any sense. So you can almost consider it like an almost barren place, like as if somebody had stripped it of its identity. So, maybe in the Pacific Ocean, for example, we had an Atlantis, right? And Atlantis falls into refuge. Well, now we just have a spot of ocean there with just ocean, nothing more.
Well, what I'm wondering is, or the reason I'm asking is I'm planning or debating whether, when I do get to the world map creation for this, if it would actually, if it would actually, like,
You want my
kind of
honest
like
answer?
Go for it.
Go for what feels best to you. There is no wrong answer here. You could say that it's been copied. You could say that there's just a hole left behind. You could say that the features have been stripped. It doesn't matter because they are all correct. Infinite universes, after all. Surely some of them have different means of having fallen in. And that means also different aspects that have been left behind.
Mostly I was asking about like a portal or something that is left behind because it kind of playing with the idea of the ocean that filled in the space could be it could be kind of like a Bermuda Triangle legend kind of situation where it's like, yeah, people have gone into this area and just disappeared.
Honestly, I'd say go for it. It just obviously wouldn't be something that could be reasonably utilized just due to the very nature of refuge. Again, it's a tangle
Okay.
within a tangle within a tangle. There is no for sure way of getting to refuge.
Okay. Yeah, it wouldn't be something that they'd be trying to get into. It would just be, yeah, they now avoid it.
Yeah. What I'm saying is it would be more than just like, hey, we have a portal just set up in the middle of fucking nowhere. It's big and glowing. If you step through it, you end up in refuge. It would be more than that.
Okay. So
Yeah.
then the possibility of the land being left behind.
And to answer your question, Spirit, before we get too much further, I'm doing well, thank you. How are you doing, Zim?
Oh, I'm okay. I don't want to go to sleep yet,
Okay.
but I need to soon. Also, it looks like the Marten
Yeah, and I know I'm keeping you up.
The Marten vid hasn't broken in forever. What the heck? So now I'm thinking it's a kind of like on the official world side. I'm thinking the land stayed behind, or not necessarily, like, it's barren, but it's kind of like a Roanoke kind of situation where the people and such just, like, the land itself, I'm thinking, got copied. Whereas in the people and vegetation and such went with it, fell through. And so now it's like, there's just a barren rock here, and yet we have records that there used to be people here. So it's kind of like a Roanoke where everybody's just gone and nobody knows why.
Honestly, I love it. It could be something that's just kind of like a blip in your species' history and the universe you're making, but is obviously is the significant event. It's like literally 0 AD for your region after they come into refuge. 0 AD being after drop.
Ah, yeah. Yeah, I'm liking this idea. It's like people knew that they were over there, that there were people on that island, and yet all of the buildings, all of the signs that they ever existed there have just disappeared. And yet their historical writings, when they finally get to the point where they can get to that land, are very certain that there used to be people there. But they find no signs that anyone ever lived there.
Perhaps what should also be noted is that any crystals for individuals who'd been like planted or entombed within that area have also gone silent, which is an incredibly unusual thing for the Marceps. Or if not gone silent, then at the very least they've been reduced to like a very dim, like static or hum. Like the presence is still there, but it's obviously like indiscernible. It's almost like you're trying to talk to them through through interference.
The consciousness has gone inert.
Yeah.
Which for
Yeah,
them,
however you wish to play it.
for them, that is something that can happen. Is basically the person in there just decided, well, I'm done, and kind of shut themselves off forever. They can go to sleep, but there's a difference between, like, that is their form of true death, basically, is, you know, when they decide, okay, I'm done. I'm bored, or whatever their reason may be. I'm bored. I've seen everything I want to. Whatever the case may be, I'm just done. So I'm thinking that's what it'll be like if anybody goes through, is that it'll appear that they're inert, which would be very unusual because they often, centuries, if not more, that they still persist inside of the crystals. And yet, in this case, it's like one day they're awake and the next day they're gone. So.
Yeah.
But Stream Raiders has ended. I did not get much work actually written down, but I at least have some ideas for later.
Yeah, that's about how it goes for me. Like when I'm sitting down and I'm going through my thing, it tends to be a lot more of me brainstorming than it is for me actually writing. But that's okay.
Yeah.
That's just how the creative process goes sometimes.
Mm-hmm. I will answer this last question for you, Sirio. So necromancy is not something that the Marcep people practice. They do have a form of innate magic that they can focus and study and improve, but it's more the druidic nature. They do have the ability to raise the dead. However, they cannot do it after the coffin has formed, which the coffin usually takes somewhere between 2 to 3 weeks before it actually does so. So it's basically, for a Marcep, you have that long to actually raise them from the dead. Now, granted, they don't have a form of resurrection like some other systems do, where, they don't even need the body and they can raise the dead. In those cases, yes, it is possible to raise the dead, if you don't need a body at all. Well, I take that back. Technically, you can raise the dead after the coffin is formed. It's just not going to stick because they are currently encased inside of a, crystal. They kind of need to breathe. So you raise them back and they're like that for a few seconds before they die of suffocation. As for the crystal of a dead Marcep piloting a mech, that is a possibility. It's an idea that I've been playing with still. I'm kind of thinking that that's something that they will need to have trained to do before they move to the crystal phase, in order for it to actually work. And even then, it would be a difficult process that not all of them will be able to achieve. Because while their consciousness does persist, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a strong presence in there. It's more of a how best to put it? It's like they're definitely there. They definitely exist, but it's not like they can exert much outside of it, outside of special magics being involved. I'm not sure how else to word it. The words just aren't coming to mind. It is a copy. It's not exactly copy, but it is their actual memories and self in there, but they don't have the same presence of mind as when they were when their physical body was alive. They can basically run out of energy trying to do something and need to sleep for a while to regenerate it. And that can take some time rather than... And so while they're alive, it's something that they can work on to kind of train that stamina of their mind up, so that way they can actually be effective at piloting something. More often, what you see is it's multiple Marceps that are working together, because like the brains of the AI of their ship, or quote unquote AI, is the combined consciousness of many Marceps. It's also the primary form of power being drawn. Oh, no. Like, they are actually still in there. It is actually their consciousness. Their actual person.
Certainly gives a new meaning if you accidentally drop Grandma and she shatters. Then you gotta vacuum Grandma up.
Oh my god.
Sorry, Grandma.
Really, Rygon? Really? For the record, if you do drop it or somehow damage the crystal, it will reshape it and reform itself. It just draws from that energy that would then need to be renewed.
Quickly, somebody get the Grandma glue. That's actually interesting. I wonder if they have products designed specifically to help the crystals with regrowth.
I'm thinking no.
Oh, interesting.
It's one of I'm thinking that, like, in the case of their ships, and a lot of their in the case of their ships and such, they do have products for helping rebind each person together. Because, like, the crystals are comprised of crystals from many, many different Marceps. So there is a weakness between those individual crystals that could be exploited in some way. And so they do have means of replenishing that bond. But as far as, you know, you drop Grandma's crystal, no, they don't have something like that. That said, the chances of Grandma's crystal shattering from you just simply dropping it, even from a high distance onto a hard floor, unlikely. They're not indestructible, but they are very resilient. It's kind of like a diamond in their strength. Like, you can crush a diamond. It's just very, very hard. Well, probably not as strong as a diamond, but up there. Anyways. I got a whole paragraph written down, but I did a lot of theory crafting tonight, so I'm okay with that. Thank you, everybody.
I'm happy it gives me something new I can play with.
Yeah. And I'm more than happy to make sure that your rendition of them lines up with the official.
Yeah. Definitely. We'll
You're
definitely
im-
have to play with it. What's up?
Chrisovs, you're imagining Harith using one of the crystals as candy before realizing blasphemy? I don't think the Harith are going to be able to eat them. And not only that, they would basically taste just like any other gem. No actual flavor.
Oh, but the Harith, they do have taste buds for minerals. So I would
Fair
imagine it
point.
might have a flavor. But it'd be like, I don't know, what would be like the equivalent?
Gee,
Mm,
this crystal tastes like old grandma.
yeah, well, exactly. It probably just tastes like chicken.
Probably not like that, but yeah.
Illegal
Anyways.
black market trade of the Marcep crystals.
Oh my god. Thank you everybody
But,
for joining
yeah.
us tonight for the stream. I'll be back and doing more of this. Remember, tomorrow we are having a special stream that will start at some indeterminate time. Because I have no idea when the PC is actually going to arrive, so I can't exactly plan exactly when with that in mind. However, pretty much as soon as I get that PC, you can bet I'm going to be here streaming for you all, and we're going to do a unboxing. Check out our website, check out all those things, check out our link tree. Thank you so much for joining and supporting the channel. And yeah, come join us on our Discord. But for now, I bid you all the most fondest adieu.
All right.